Welcome, everyone, to episode 76 of the Thundercraps podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your host, in the same conversation as Babe Ruth and Michael Jordan, Josh Kaiser. And joining me today, taking the Hershey Highway back to the funny farm, Kyle Hogan.
Just as soon as I didn't think they couldn't push me any further, they pull me right the fuck back in. What's going on, everybody? I am super stoked to talk about this, and maybe it's just because we have been so accustomed to the shit show that is Thunder for the past like 3-4 weeks. At least. I mean, I can't remember the last time we were like, oh, it's a good match, yeah, or it's a good show. This was a meaningful show. I mean, that's the word. It was a meaningful show.
That's the thing. It wasn't a great show.
No.
It wasn't a necessarily
Bobby Blaze was on the show. Right?
But it was a meaningful show, and I am so excited. Like, I watched this, and when we get to that part, there was a certain part when it happened, I'm like, oh my god, I cannot wait to record an episode of Thundercraps. And it's been a while since I really thought, like, man, I can't wait to discuss what happened with you.
No, absolutely. And it's, and the thing is, here's the real honesty about it. And if there's one crowd that really, really deserves to have a high-quality Thunder, it is Lubbock, Texas.
It is, in fact, Lubbock, Texas. Of course, this is Thunder 76. It is August 19th, 1999. We are live. We are, of course, following up Road Wild, the sturgis event of the year. And Mike Tenay is jacked for Thunder, Kyle. Hulk Hogan, still your champion. Kevin Nash wrestled his final match as a competitor in WCW, so
he will be missed. Obviously, his last match.
I'd like to take a moment to say, thank you, Kevin, for everything you've done. You will be missed. But in the meantime, Hulk Hogan, the future of WCW, world champion, and his number one contender now that Hogan's going to be defending that title against Sting, who, of course, coming off the fresh loss, the clean loss against Sid at Road Wild, so no better competitor for that world title than the loser that is Sting.
And I first of all, I totally forgot that part, that Sting was the number one contender. Sure, but it's also fucking stupid. I also realized something else, and I put it in my notes just because it just rubbed me a little bit weird, that if you look at all of the people that are on the Thunder Open, like all the wrestlers and stuff, and I just kind of laughed to myself, like, when was the last time any of those wrestlers, I guess Goldberg just last week, just because he just came back and get him on the show. But when was the last time we had Paige, other than yelling your mama jokes, or hell, Hogan, or obviously Nash. Nash is retired and he's still on the damn thing. So, or Bret Hart's been out for 6 months. He's
no Bret Hart, no Lex Luger. There's a lot of superstardom missing from Thunder.
Absolutely. I just wish they would update it to something a little bit more accurate, like Lodi and Al Green, Rick Steiner, throw Bobby Blaze in there. I think that's going to be a little bit more accurate. Disco Inferno. I would love to when we get a chance. I know we did it last time. I hope we do it again, to do a 1999 wrap up and really be like, who was the Thunder MVP? Like who really carried the banner of WCW Thunder for 1999, and I mean, I can't really, I'm not gonna think of anything off the top of my head right now, but it's definitely none of those guys.
Well, a couple of people that it could be is in our opening bout. It is Silver King and Psychosis. We hear right when the match starts that Psychosis was part of an attack by Sid on Monday night, and when I hear that and I see Psychosis and Silver King, I have to imagine something similar might happen. And this match was actually pretty entertaining between the two of them. Silver King hits a nice super kick at one point. There's a suicide like plancha from Psychosis to the outside. But ultimately, victims 62 and 63 in Sid's reign to match Goldberg is what is ultimately going to happen in this match. I didn't bother rating it. Apparently, they're going to keep just adding up all of these opponents, quote-unquote, for Sid, even though they're probably the same people over and over, but I guess Goldberg's count was probably a lot of repeats as well.
And also inflated, I'm sure.
Right. Which is funny is they call it 61-0, so then they reference 62 and 63, but then Sid's going to get on the microphone, says it's all about Goldberg, so continuing to push that he's going after Goldberg's number. He says something about magic number 76, and I don't know where he got 76 from, other than it's the 76th episode of Thunder, which I cannot imagine Sid had any fucking clue about.
Or anybody around him.
Right. But that's sort of your segment here. Again, we're continuing to push Sid as the Millennium Man, the monster, all kinds of shit going down here.
And apparently not the number one contender for the world title after being the number one contender for the world title.
That's right. But a former number one contender for the world title is in our next match. It is Al Green, Kyle, wrestling Shane Douglas. Do you notice Shane Douglas, the Revolution theme is just Dean Malenko's theme music?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's just also come down to Shane's only been around maybe for a month and hasn't. It's kind of like the Bam Bam Bigelow paradox, where it took him like 4 months before someone would give him some ring music. And I think it took Raven almost 8 months to get music, so there's that too.
I thought Shane Douglas looked pretty good in this match. He actually does kind of like a reverse snapmare move, which I thought was kind of unique looking, something I hadn't seen very often. It looks
like Kurt Hennig's snapmare, but kind of in reverse.
Yeah, right. They do the match, is fairly long for what you expect is going to be an Al Green getting squash match. They battle on the outside. Ultimately, Shane Douglas, of course, is going to hit the Pittsburgh plunge and get the 3 count. I gave it 2 stars. I thought it was a solid squash match and made Shane look fine.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I gave it 2 stars as well. Shane didn't look half bad. But one thing I did kind of notice a bit, maybe like 3 minutes into the match. This was only like a 5-minute match. But at minute 2.5, Shane kind of looked blew up. Like he was just gassed and out of breath. He was breathing crazy heavy. After they got back, I think they were on the outside for a little bit, like kind of like throwing each other into the guardrails. And he came back into the ring and just was like just sucking air. And I really hope that, usually Dean's not one for me to be like, he's not like a guy who's not in shape, but he did look tired in a 4-minute match. So hopefully his conditioning will improve in the next couple of weeks.
Well, as long as he keeps getting matches to warm up against like the likes of Al Green, I'm sure he'll get back into tip-top shape for sure.
Yeah.
After this, we get a little West Texas Rednecks. We find out they're debuting a new video this Monday instead of Thursday night.
Or they're doing a commercial for 4-wheelers. I have no idea.
We do get our Saturday night promo. We find out Harlem Heat, Kidman, Rey Mysterio, and Chris Benoit will all be in action.
Did you also find that was interesting that this is where you find out that Harlem Heat won the tag titles?
Yeah, so I guess it is worth noting Harlem Heat did win the tag titles on Road Wild, but yes, to your point, this is when we find out on Thunder that they are the champs. We then go to a Mean Gene interview. He's got Rick Steiner here. Mean Gene is trying his hardest in this interview to get Rick Steiner to discuss the Revolution personally. Rick Steiner just keeps throwing out his normal, if you don't like me, bite me. If you want some, come get some sticks. And Gene kept saying, like, well, what do you think about, Saturn and Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko? And he just kept going on his own kind of tangent. And ultimately, he does issue a challenge to one of them. So we might get a Rick Steiner match. We're not sure. But you could tell Gene, I think, had a direction he was supposed to take that interview, and I think Rick Steiner took it slightly off path. But
I mean, I don't think you're going to get too much in perspective with Rick in any interview. I mean, he knows his 2 or 3 lines. I think he said something about. I did like one line. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I actually liked one thing he said where, anybody who thinks he's bigger than me, I always cut them down the side because I bite their heads off. I was like, lame, but kind of cool. I kind of like that.
Well, if you like that, you have to like Coach Buzz Stern's promo following this. Of course, this is the artist formerly known as Glacier. He is a physical education coach. He's standing in front of a chalkboard with a bunch of probably jobbers from the power plant. One guy shows up late. Buzz is really trying to, make it look like he's a hard ass, and tells them if they can't be an athlete, they can be an athletic supporter, and really pumps up the troops here. So, Kyle, what do you think about Glacier's future as Coach Buzz Stern?
It's not looking good, and I think the other thing too is I don't remember him wrestling as Coach Buzz Stern. If I remember correctly, he was a valet for that wrestler that was late. The guy who showed up late in the promo. I think his last name is Biggs, or I want to say Riggs or Biggs or something like that. And
Scotty Riggs.
Yeah, that's what Scotty Riggs needs. He's Glacier in his corner. But yeah, I if I remember correctly, he's supposed to be kind of like the coach for an enhancement talent wrestler. So I think that's all you need to know about the future of Coach Buzz Stern, aka Glacier.
Yeah, not gonna go well. After this, we do get our next match of the night: Steve Riegel, Dave Taylor, and Chris Adams in a 6-man tag against Bobby Blaze, Adrian Byrd, and Dave Burkhead.
All future Hall of Famers.
Steve Riegel's a Hall of Famer, right?
Oh no, sure. I think once again, if I can say 5 out of 6, I think we're. Let me ask you this: if it wasn't for the fact that we had the WWE Network and the internet in general, could you have named, other than maybe Bobby Blaze, and even Bobby Blaze, it's an easily forgettable character.
The only reason I could have named any three of those people was the internet and Mike Tenay maybe mentioning some of their names during the match.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, as soon as they were making their way to the ring, the only guy that you might have had a prayer was that I think Bobby Blaze has his name on his ass on his tights, but then Adrian Byrd and Dave Burkhead are what they are. They're straight up enhancement talent people I've never heard of in my life.
And as you can imagine, they're going to, of course, job in this match, kind of, as the Brits here are going to get their typical heel work in. They're going to distract the ref. This allows them to get the triple team in. However, we're not going to rate this match because Sid's going to come out. He's going to destroy Blaze, Byrd, and Burkhead, the Triple Bs.
So basically, they got mega squashed. They got squashed by their own opponents, and then they got squashed by Sid afterwards.
And Charles Robinson's even going to make the counts here because why not? Rick Steiner's out with Sid at this point. Sid's going to get on the microphone saying he wasn't having enough fun by himself, so that's why Rick's here. He said he's way into the 50s now as far as victims, which now he talked about 76 earlier. They mentioned on commentary in the 60s, and now he's talking about the 50s. I'm so fucking lost. I don't know whether this is just a joke. They're just trying to make fun of Goldberg's streaks. They're just going to throw out random numbers every time, or if they're just that incompetent. I don't know.
If he starts talking about being in the 70s next week, then it's got to be a joke, and I think we're all in for the long con.
He then power bombs one of the jobbers again. Robinson's going to count again.
Okay, hold on. Look, if you're going to do a podcast and talk about what's going on, at least have the decency and the respect to give the name of the guy who got power bombed, and it was Adrian Byrd. Don't be a jerk.
All right. Well, sorry, Mr. Byrd. You're going to job this time. Rick Steiner is going to challenge the Revolution again. Sid powerbombs somebody else. It might have been Blaze again at that point.
It was Blaze that time.
And they counted again. I got to admit, at this point, I'm kind of entertained by what's happening with Sid. I don't know if they just broke me or what. But so Sid continuing to be your champion. And then after that, we move into a Revolution promo. Saturn is going to accept the challenge for the TV title. That's going to happen later tonight. So now we got Saturn versus Rick Steiner. And what I noticed most in this Revolution promo is it does seem like Shane Douglas is not just the mouthpiece, but also kind of like the leader of the Revolution, which I know we kind of alluded to last week, but that does seem to be the case at this point.
Well, when you think about everybody else that's in this stable, I mean, there's nobody else that should be on the mic but Shane Douglas. Like Chris Benoit, maybe, but Shane is, head and shoulders more charismatic than the other three guys. So yes, he should have the mic for sure. And I also had to notice that the way Shane was kind of like packaging this together, like this felt like a PG era D-Generation X team with basically one charismatic guy on there. But it just seems
you can't see Dean Malenko telling everybody to suck it.
I can't. Although when he was a member of the Horsemen, Ric Flair did kind of make a notion that Dean Malenko was basically going to fuck Miss Elizabeth in a hotel room. So I mean, there is that that notion, that chance that Dean Malenko does have a wild side.
Oh, they don't call him the Iceman for nothing, right?
Ugh.
We get more Good Old Boys video, and then we move to our Cruiserweight title match, the first title match of the night, Kyle. We got 3 title matches here on Thunder, which as always means absolutely nothing. But we've got Lenny and Lodi wrestling the Cruiserweight champion. I should say Lenny's wrestling the Cruiserweight champion, Rey Mysterio Jr. Lodi has a sign that says, Lodi and Lenny love Longhorns, which made me crack up a little bit. Of course, Rey is going to make his homophobic remarks at this point, which, of course, ages well here 20 years later. The match itself, though, a little back and forth early on, which surprised me a little bit. And I got to admit, the crowd here in Lubbock was probably fairly pedestrian until this match. So they're really behind Rey Mysterio Jr., or they really hate Lenny and Lodi, or some combination of the both. Lenny's going to take a top rope atomic drop. Lenny's going to get a face full of Lodi's crotch. They're going to backfire, and they run into each other. Lenny's going to take a Rough Rider. Lodi's going to get a drop toe hold into Lenny's crotch. So you see a lot of these crotch jokes continuing as they joke between Lenny and Lodi here. Lenny's going to hit the old skull-crushing finale.
Or the stroke if you're a Jeff Jarrett fan.
He does not get the 3 count. Rey is going to run into Lodi's head during an Irish whip, and he falls back, and he gets the curl up, and 1, 2, 3. Lenny is your winner. Wait, what? Lenny Lane is your winner.
A clean pin.
A clean pin. And I kept waiting for them to reverse it because of the distractions from Lodi, the interference of Lodi. They don't. Lenny Lane just won our Cruiserweight title against Rey Mysterio Jr. fairly cleanly. I mean, there was a little bit of shenanigans, but fairly cleanly.
It's shenanigans. It's shenanigans that for the most part Rey was handling. Like Rey was easily. It was one of those things where it was like an inadvertent. It wasn't like Lodi like loaded up a fist or put out the dick knuckles or anything of that nature. Right. No, it just looked like Lodi was. Yeah, Lodi was just trying to stop the pin and would have been like a DQ, but then Lenny kicked out, which then ran, Rey's head into Lodi's head on accident, and then that's how he got the curl up. I
gave the match 3 stars. I loved everything about this. I thought the match, finish aside, it's a 2.5-ish star match, maybe 2.25, 2.5, somewhere in that range. Because I thought it was a solid back and forth match. Some comedy spots from Lenny and Lodi. Rey and Lenny looked fine together. But the fact that they're going to have Lenny win the title over Rey, which you and I have talked about for weeks, like Rey doesn't need this title. He probably needs to get out of the Cruiserweight picture for a while. This is fantastic, and it happens on Thunder, and it's unexpected, and it's just I loved everything about this.
I agree. They need to get another champion in the Cruiserweight division that can get built up. And then if ultimately Rey has to go back and be the guy that overtakes it and gets the title back, then that's fine. That's a kind of, once again, helps legitimize more talent. But right now, Rey hardly defends the Cruiserweight title because he's caught up in other things. He's in other angles while holding the Cruiserweight title. So I agree. 3 stars for sure. Good match. Highly entertaining, which is I agree. I think from the match and the spots and just the work rate, I would probably give it between a 2.5, maybe a 2 3/4, barely, but hits that 3 star because of some ballsy booking. And I said all joking aside, it was a very unique way that the match went down, and honestly, that could only be pulled off with Lenny and Lodi in 1999 in WCW. So hats off for actually using their character development and whatever unique, bizarre kind of shit that they're doing with those two and making it into something kind of constructive and entertaining. And it also gave Lenny his first title of his career. So hats off to Lenny. Good job there. It wasn't your standard spot fest, which though I like, it was nice to see a cruiserweight match that wasn't just all about that. It almost felt like, and I know it's going to sound like, well, of course you're going to compare this because it's Lenny Lane. It felt like more of like if Jericho was in that match, where it felt more like not so much about high spots, but more about, actual chemistry and work rate in the ring. And like we said before, it's glad to see someone else with the title. Lenny might not have been my top choice because I don't know how long Lenny's going to be the top guy.
If Lenny dropped the title on Monday, this coming Monday on Nitro, to anyone other than Ray, do you even care if he's a transitional champion for a week?
No, I don't.
I don't either. I think it was just great that they did this.
Yep, I agree. And we both agree that Ray needs to focus on bigger and better things.
And after the match, Jean Shorts Eddie's going to come out and help comfort Ray after the embarrassing loss. So nothing better than having Jean Short Eddie out there.
Well, he had to match Jean Shorts Kidman, who also came out to also apologize for not having Ray's back. Remember there was a storyline where Kidman Ray never had Kidman's back, and now look at that. Here we go, full circle. You now lost the title because you're a jerk, Ray.
After this, the Harlem Heat will be defending their tag team titles, recently won against the last remaining members, I think, of the NWO Black and White in Scott Norton and Horace.
Did you also know that it was interesting that this is now the second title defense on the show, and they were both return matches from Nitro? Because Lenny and Ray wrestled on Nitro, and Ray retained.
Ray I did, yeah, but I didn't know that Norton and Horace did as well.
Yep, this is also a return match.
We did find out on Nitro, though, that Bryan Adams was kicked out of the NWO and left in a KISS limo, so we'll see where that storyline goes.
Spoiler, nowhere.
Much like this match, Booker T is going to hit a missile drop kick, and the Harlem Heat are going to defend the titles here. I gave it 2.25 stars. I thought it was a fine match to keep Harlem Heat looking good after the recent title win. I'm glad there was no shenanigans, no interference from Sid, which I feel like has been pretty much par for the course tonight. But other than that, Scott Norton and Horace, they just need to end the NWO at this point.
If this was like Scott Norton in 1998, I would have been actually convinced that Scott Norton could have handicap beat both Harlem Heat members. But, different year, different times. I give it 2.5 stars. Pretty formulaic tag match with Booker T getting worked over for most of the match in order to build and I can't believe I'm saying this, build the excitement of Stevie Ray getting in the ring. Only issue I had with this match was the obvious notion that Harlem Heat, not going to job to the NWO. So it's like that whole peril of loss. It never really sank into my mind. I never thought for a second that Harlem Heat was going to job to the NWO today.
Watching a match earlier tonight when Shane Douglas is wrestling Al Green, did you ever get the impression that Al Green was going to win that match?
Sure, and that's why I only gave that match 2 stars. I'm just saying that first of all, it's a tag title match. It's a title match, so I don't think you're comparing apples to apples here. And I'm also not saying that I think that Scott Norton and Horace at one point in their careers, you could say if they were a tag team that they could be discussed in that discussion of, being a tag team that could win a title. Well, you got to remember, Bryan Adams and Horace were in the finals of the tag tournament and lost to Saturn Dean Malenko and Benoit. So it's not like it's unheard of in the tag. I'm going to say it with air quotes, the tag title division in WCW. But yeah, at this point in August of 1999, with how lost in obscurity the Black and White NWO faction is, there was just nothing about this match that made me feel like, ooh, I wonder if maybe we'll get our second title change of the night. Once again, did you walk into Ray and Lenny thinking otherwise?
No, but that's why it was a nice surprise.
Sure, I would like. It would have been nice to see a second nice surprise, but that's here we are.
Is Scott Norton the most unutilized, wasted talent WCW ever had?
No, because if you're just looking at it from just like the eye test and him in the ring and how much of a shit brick house he is.
What was his WCW career? I don't think he ever held a title.
Well, I think in order for you to be a legitimate wrestler, you got to have the other side of it, and that's why I hate the whole Rick Steiner experiment. Is that in 1999, not only can Rick Steiner not do a promo, but he also is he's basically relegated to squash matches. It's like Goldberg, but no one gives a shit about him, and he's way older.
Rick Steiner has held multiple championships in WCW.
Sure, no, and I'll give you that. Well, I'm not saying that Rick Steiner has been utilized less or is a lesser of a talent. I think overall, he's a bigger talent and obviously a bigger name than Scott Flash Norton. But I wouldn't go as saying biggest waste of talent. That's a tough one. I guess if you're comparing what they maybe were trying to do with him and how unstoppable he seemed, and then it's just like fizzled out for no reason, I can give you maybe that argument. But from a pure talent from in the ring, on the mic, actually drawing heat or pop from the crowd, I can't say. I'd have to look at the list of wrestlers. I think it's a shame that Scott Norton wasn't pushed to a certain extent. I feel like they could have done
something more with him than they ever did.
Yes. Oh no, and I agree. They definitely could have. I'd almost would have said, and once again we can argue most utilized or waste of talent. I'm still up there as saying that, Kidman being basically only a 3-time cruiserweight champion in his whole time in WCW, I would say I put Kidman up higher only because I think you could have actually put him in there.
The argument there is I feel like Kidman was in the spotlight a lot of the times. I feel like Scott Norton was relegated to almost nothing most of the time.
Well, and I think that's just because he was also doomed to being in this black and the NWO black and white where nobody in there was going to go any higher than the mid card. Anyways, he had to break away from it. I think he was fine with not needing to or wanting to. I think that's not. I don't think it's so much a waste of talent as much as maybe Scott Norton, never really pushed his weight around creatively and just said like, "Hey, you hear the crowd out there? They want more of me, and I'm stuck in this purgatory. I need something bigger." I think ultimately he was fine where he was.
Well, he could have maybe joined the group that was in the ring after this, and that's, of course, the First Family. Mean Gene's in the ring there. Jimmy Hart's got his stable of jabronis. They're all in there talking about those Harlem Heat tag titles. Harlem Heat, or Hugh Morris talks about how his family doesn't split up like Booker and Stevie Ray did. And
Ming would like a word with you.
Yeah. They all talk about the tag titles, and they throw out a challenge. Next week's pre-taped Thunder Kyle, we're going to get a tag title match between Harlem Heat and the First Family. And this is when we fade to commercial and we see a Thunder tattoo.
I really want to believe that this is a real tattoo. I know 99% sure it's not. It's probably one of those stick on, add water tattoos. But the moment that zoomed in on some guy with a Thunder tattoo. First off, I'm surprised that they made them. I don't think I've ever seen a Nitro stick-on tattoo or a WCW tattoo in general, and yet we have a Thunder press-on tattoo. So somebody in marketing made a decision that this is a very particular hot commodity item that needs to be created, and I wish I knew where I can get one.
Well, you can always get a real tattoo.
That is true. That would be a hilarious bet to lose.
Yeah. Your significant others and family and friends may not think so, but
right. Maybe next year we'll add some stakes to our fantasy football league.
There you go. After this, our third title match of the night: Rick Steiner defending that television championship against Perry Shooter Saturn, which, by the way, I hate the nickname Shooter, and I hate that they continue to try to push it down our throats.
There's only one person that can be Shooter, and that's Shooter McGavin.
Absolutely. Rick Steiner's going to get on the microphone, talks a little bit more shit before the match starts. We go to commercial pretty early into the match, as you'd imagine. Saturn's going to gain control of Steiner after we return from commercial. He's going to get a 10-count punch in. He's really starting to dominate the match. This, of course, brings out Sid. Sid's going to push Saturn off the top rope. That ends the match in a disqualification. I give it a star 3/4. I really was kind of sick of the Sid interference and kind of over. I feel like Saturn and Steiner, if they were given time and freedom, could have had a pretty good match. I feel like there's some chemistry there between the two of them, but just with everything that was going on here and the finish, it just, I just feel blah about this match.
The moment that Sid brought Rick in for that squash and that 6-man tag was just the writing on the wall that Sid was going to interfere in this match. This was a completely, a predictable ending to this match. I gave it 2 stars, mainly because we usually give Rick squash matches a 1.75 stars. And it's also because, people don't know how to sell his finisher. He has a stupid wrist lock. I think that usually the ending itself usually loses a star or it loses a 1/4 star. This at least was basically an 8-minute Rick Steiner squash match that ended in a DQ. So it's almost like I almost was fine for just kind of pushing a storyline. And also, I mean, we also don't have the advantage of knowing what happens after this. But it actually tells a story and actually kind of furthers into what we're going to be expecting next week. So there at least was some purpose for the DQ. So 2 stars for me.
To your point, after the match, Benoit is going to come out and help save Saturn. He's going to get on the microphone. We basically, Benoit and Saturn are going to challenge Rick and Sid to a tag team match next week. So now we have another match to look forward to on our pre-taped Thunder, Kyle. They cut to the cameras cut to this Revolution sign. It's not the first time we've seen it in the crowd. We see it again here tonight. It is literally the shittiest sign I've ever seen. It's like somebody in permanent marker, and by somebody I mean like an 8-year-old kid wrote Revolution, and in each corner wrote all of the 4 guys' names. It looks like shit, and yet WCW thought not once but twice to cut to it when they're talking about the Revolution.
It bugged me that Malenko's name was on the bottom right, all in small letters, except for the K and the O. So it was like Malenko. And
hey,
yeah,
that's what Malenko's going to do. He's going to KO all the competition.
He's like the only one that's not in matches.
Sid's going to get on the microphone. He's going to add up everybody's weights. So it was good to see Sid do a little math here. He's then going to get on the apron. Benoit and Saturn are going to knock him kind of back off the apron, and then he gets on the microphone and says, out with the Evolution, in with the Revolution. This whole segment just felt like it was dragging on, as though like their timing was way off here, and they just kind of like were told to improvise, but they were improvising really poorly.
I was really looking forward to someone yelling, "We're out of time," and no one ever did.
That's what happens when you don't have Mr. Schiavone here. Unfortunately, Kyle, we are out of time for this Thunder. What did you think about Thunder 76?
Now, I might just be giddy because of what we've been used to watching, and I'm not going to be the guy that says this was one of the best Thunders I've seen. But overall, a much better Thunder than what we've grown accustomed to lately. And that's counting the fact that Sid DQ'd half the show. Obviously, some highlights. We have a new Cruiserweight champion in Lenny, which hopefully will shine some new light in that scene in the Cruiserweight division. I want to see – he may be a transitional champion, but I'm hoping that there's going to be people that are going to try and move up a little bit, and some other people you might start recognizing. I'm looking at – I don't know, Blitzkrieg still in the company, or Lash LaRue, or any of those types of guys. It would be nice to see a couple of new names kind of dancing around in there. But the big thing here is that this is the first Thunder that I can remember in a while that just felt like it mattered, because we have 2 matches that are set up for quote unquote next week, which I think the crowd is going to be really confused that everyone's like, oh yeah, next week on this show, and then that's like 20 minutes later they're having the matches.
Later, they're watching it, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we have 2 matches set up for next week as a result of this week's show. And we have a new Cruiserweight champion. When was the last time that happened on Nitro, let alone Thunder? I'm still not a huge fan of Sin rooting half the matches, as it's getting kind of redundant and overplayed. But he's got to look unstoppable if he's going to take on Goldberg. So I guess I have to give it a pass until that storyline hopefully, dies in a fiery car crash. But overall, very, very excited to see that Thunder felt like it mattered, and had some stakes to it. Is pushing things over to next week. So yeah, overall a lot more nice things to say than bad things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Lenny winning the title is the biggest deal by far. I'm excited to see that this Thunder meant something, you said use the word meaningful early on in the show, and I think that's a great way of putting it. It's nice that we had a meaningful Thunder. The Sid storyline gets a little overdone here, but ultimately Lenny, they surprised us. And I think, after watching 76 episodes of Thunder, it's nice to be surprised. And I was thinking the other day, I off the top of my head, if you asked me to name in 76 episodes the top 5 Thunder moments, I'm not sure I could right away. I'd have to sit and think about it. But there's I'm not even sure I could think of top I could think even memorable moments. But there are 2 moments that stick out in my mind from 76 episodes of Thunder. This week, when Lenny Lane wins the cruiserweight title, and Lenny Lane impersonating Jericho with a mask on many, many, many episodes ago. So, I don't know about you, but Lenny Lane might be 2 of the top 5 Thunder moments in the first 76 episodes.
I can't argue against that. It's obviously, I'm sure if we had to sit down and really think about it, maybe the impersonating Jericho thing might go down a couple of rungs. But the shock of Lenny winning the cruiserweight title, I mean, just the fact that a title changes hands on Thunder is watching Sasquatch pull a 4-leaf clover out of the ground. So it's also just a nice welcome thing to see, because it's now giving us maybe this false notion. It's that tease that we're supposed to watch Thunder, and here we are watching Thunder for weeks and weeks and weeks, thinking, Jesus Christ, this is already turning into, the official B show where storylines don't matter. They don't get progressed. It's just a bunch of enhancement talent, maybe a couple of promos with Mean Gene, Macho Man
replays.
Yeah, Macho Man yelling at us. Barbarian, I think he said he was going to eat somebody's ass, I think, during that segment with the First Family.
It did sound like that, didn't it?
It did, and I loved it, but just because he said literally 6 words. So I didn't like the idea that I think we were all just kind of just sitting back embracing the inevitable that what Thunder is going to become. But then it's shows like this that make you be like, you know what? Maybe, I don't know who decided to make that decision, but I'm glad that someone did that said, look, guys, we still have the show on Thunder. We need to give people a reason to watch this other than a Nitro recap. And we didn't even talk about the fact that we had 0 Nitro recaps.
0 replays. 0. It's impressive.
It really is. It's overall, it's a nice cocktail of just a good show that was independent. It didn't need Nitro. And in the end, Nitro's going to need Thunder to recap the shit that happened on this Thunder.
Yes, they are.
That's something that Nitro's going to have to get used to. They're going to have to fucking pull out a Thunder recap.
Absolutely they are. And if you guys are pulling out your Thunder recaps every week from us, we appreciate it. And we recommend, if you haven't yet subscribed, go do it. Leave us a rating. Let us know how we are doing. Give us a follow on the Twitter or the Facebook or any of that social media. And you of course, can always go to thundercraps.com for all of our previous episodes. And then Thunder 77, it's pre-taped in Lubbock, Texas. We know some tag matches are on the line. Harlem Heat and the First Family. We've got Sid and Rick Steiner against the Revolution. There's a lot to take in, and we'll have to see if Lenny is still a champion 1 week later. That is, of course, Thunder 77, August 26, 1999. We will watch it. We will review it. We will be here. We will be back next week. So for Kyle Hogan, I'm Josh Kaiser, and we will see you next time on the Thundercraps podcast.
We are buzz-sterningly out of time. See ya.